Start with some new information on religious freedom bills here in Texas.
Yes, that's right. We have the Texas legislature in action, and that's usually a bad thing. And today is the 63rd.
It's only every year and a half.
Yeah, 63rd failure show, if you're keeping track. So the Texas legislature is considering a number of bills allegedly to restore freedoms allegedly lost to the religious. Bills are being introduced also at the state level all throughout the United States. And so this is not just a Texas thing. This is all over. And it's under the umbrella of something called Project Blitz. And if you haven't heard about that, that's a bit of an ongoing, the Borg have assembled their troops and they're marching. One of the things they're doing is they're creating a lot of In God We Trust bills and plastering In God We Trust everywhere. And partly that's a litmus test to make so that people who vote against it or get to be singled out somehow. Another part of it is religious liberty bills. A lot of these are drawing largely from the Report and Analysis on Religious Freedom Measures Impacting Prayer and Faith in America, 2017 version by the Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation. And I've already posted a link of this on our blog under today's topic. And I highly recommend looking at it because it is kind of the marching orders for a lot of these bills and the thinking behind it. I want to focus mostly on Senate Bill 17 here in Texas, which would allow state license holders like lawyers, health professionals, and counselors to serve clients based on their religious beliefs without any adverse reactions from licensing boards. And this is copied largely from page 95 of the CPCF report I just mentioned. And there's a lot of heat and frustration with this. A lot of folks are claiming that this will potentially allow discrimination against gays or those seeking contraceptives. And unfortunately, it was passed by the state Senate a couple weeks ago and is moving on to the House. And so it's got some legs and it's moving. Some of the other bills, by the way, I posted a link to all the bills as part of Dan Patrick's agenda. State Bill 15 removes ordinances currently in place to protect LGBT residents from discrimination in the workplace. There's a bit of a power grab going on in Texas where they're trying to tamp down on a lot of local laws and consolidate power at the
Wait, you said
state level.
15. Is this 17 for both of them?
No, 15 is about the professions.
Okay.
And that's mostly the topic today, but also they have 15, and they also have various abortion restrictions and one voter suppression bill and the typical things you might find from a Republican legislature.
Is it just me or the CPRF, the Congressional, or CPCRF, the Congressional Prayer Caucus Forum? Is it just me or is it weird that that's even a thing? Like, I fully acknowledge that people don't have to check their religion at the door. You get to continue your beliefs, but you shouldn't be advocating for your beliefs in your professional capacity. So, like, if the governor wants to pray, the governor can pray. If the governor wants to get together at a church and pray, he can do that. If the governor wants to get all his friends together and pray for the end of the drought, like Perry did, he can do that. But what he shouldn't be able to do is, in his official capacity, say, as governor, I want everybody to pray, which is what he did, which is why there was a problem. And so to me, it seems like if Congress members want to pray, they can pray. But to have an official congressional prayer caucus seems to me to be a codifying of religion from the outset. And now all the reports that come from them are even more dubious than I would have thought before.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, and it's creepy that this report is turned into so many different potential laws around the nation, right? It's
so what are they doing this time?
Well, so there's the State Bill 17, which has to do with the ability of lawyers, healthcare professionals, and counselors to serve clients, and this could potentially allow a counselor to talk to a young gay person and encourage them to commit suicide because God thinks they're defective or whatever, or it could be contraceptives are withheld based on the potential religious convictions of a healthcare professional. And so basically it's a mechanism for people to put their religious beliefs ahead of their professional duties. And so that's a concern. So a lot of these so-called religious freedom things are really just Christians wanting the freedom to shit on others. These bills have nothing to do about the freedom of the victims not to be persecuted. Their freedoms don't matter at all. And that's already the case where we already have a lot of laws and such structured to favor religious belief over religious belief, disbelief, or other forms of secular belief systems or whatever. Religion tends to get preference in a lot of ways. Another aspect of a lot of these laws is this idea of a sincerely held religious belief.
I actually like the way that they phrased it that way.
Oh, really? I hate it.
How do you prove that it's sincere? If somebody argues, I'm doing this based on my sincerely held religious belief, please prove that it's sincere. You can't do that.
Well, that's my complaint with it is the Supreme Court in the Hobby Lobby case ruled that religious beliefs can be anything whatsoever, and it's impossible to verify or even test religious belief. And so
you can. This is why in theological circles there's a recognized difference between orthodoxy, which is the right belief, and orthopraxy, which is the right practice. And so you can go to church all the time, but that doesn't tell anybody what's actually in your head. And so the sloppiness of this, the part that you don't like, I understand why you don't like it because, oh my gosh, there's no way to prove this. But that is, I think, the point of attack. To say, you came in here and you said that you don't want to provide contraceptives to someone who had them prescribed by a doctor, and that's your sincerely held religious belief you claim. How can we know that it's sincere? And they might say, well, because I'm refusing to do it. Well, you're refusing to do the action, but that doesn't tell us what the motivation is. And at the end of the day, if you can't do the job that you've signed up to do because of your religious beliefs, you should not take the job. You should not be allowed to continue doing the job.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, the sincerely held religious belief really doesn't mean anything. It's whatever you want.
It's my sincerely held religious belief that these laws should be scrapped.
Absolutely.
And that anybody who tries to impose these laws should be removed from public office and tarred and feathered. That's my sincere religious belief.
And it's my sincerely held religious belief that any belief about religion is a religious belief. Anyway, so we can get in on the act too, I believe. So the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act of a couple years ago, which is a terrible law, and other RFRA laws around the states also have this phrase, and this is a common thing these days. And in my mind, this is nothing more than a religious power grab. I'm religious, I get to do whatever I want. And their religious beliefs are evil and they know it. And the reason is if they had to justify their beliefs by pointing at the Bible, they would have to say, well, these gay men, you don't get to shit on them. You have to kill them. That's what the Bible says. And the Bible authors never even realized that lesbians existed, so they must be okay.
They wrote about lesbians without realizing that lesbians exist. Ruth. Go check Ruth out.
Okay, well, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I guess. Abortion in the Bible is never mentioned, but causing a miscarriage is a property crime against the father.
Ooh, to be fair, Paul wrote about lesbians.
Oh, did he?
It's the Old Testament people who didn't know about lesbians.
Okay, thank you. God murders and commands the murder of children throughout the Old Testament. So there's all sorts of evil stuff in the Bible, and Christians, I think, are embarrassed by saying, oh, well, I believe in the Bible, and the Bible says X, because the Bible is pretty awful, and they know it.
I will vehemently disagree with Don here, because I don't think most Christians know what the fuck the Bible says, or that it's repugnant, because they always seem surprised when I bring it up, and they're like, where is that in the Bible? And then I tell them.
Stick that in your pipe and smoke it, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that there are some that are embarrassed. I know some that are embarrassed by things. And like even when Ray Comfort called in and I talked about slavery, his response was, well, I never said I believe everything in the Bible. That was what he said on this show, which caught me completely off guard.
Yep.
And helped remind me that, of course, not all of them believe the same thing, because most of them don't know what the hell they believe or why.
Okay. Another reason these religious exclusions are evil is if a religious person wants to do something objectively good, it would be welcomed, and there would be no law or regulation against it. Christians could pray to end poverty, and it would be celebrated. That would be an awesome thing they could do. But they obviously need exclusions so that they can screw over somebody, because that's the only reason to have a special dispensation in the laws. And so they are sort of admitting their belief is evil, because if they were really doing good, they wouldn't have to hide it and wouldn't have to have these laws. Another theme seems to be evasion of responsibility. And these people don't want to have any sort of professional fallout and such. And, when you hear about bakers who are baking cakes for various things, there was a case in, not the famous one in Colorado, but there was another one in Florida, I think, where they basically said, hey, we're not going to make a cake for your same-sex wedding. And word got out that they were doing this, and they ended up going out of business. And the religious folks are all like, oh no, how terrible. What? And if you treat your customers like crap, then maybe you deserve to go out of business. And I would be okay with a lot of businesses if they just had a big sign on their business that said exactly how they're going to discriminate against people, and they were upfront and honest about it, and everybody could know that. Then patrons could make informed choices. The free market will decide that this business is crap, and they don't need to be patronized. And in the case of professionals, that should be part of their credentials, and there should be a mechanism by which potential victims can avoid those people and not have to be victims to their evil. But Christians don't want that level of responsibility. They don't want that at all. So they want to have full privileges while denying that to others, and they want to do it insidiously where they can do the most harm.
It's one of those things where Christianity and religion are, Eric just said that they're winning by a lot. So
okay.
Evidently my appeal for donations has fallen on deaf ears, and Eric decided to rub it in. So we'll see how it goes before the end of the show. But back to things that matter for this show. Christianity, it can be many different things to many different people. And you actually referred to the Bible as the big book of multiple choice years ago.
Actually, that was a Jeff D.
Was it Jeff D thing?
My quote is, it's a Rorschach test for the morally challenged.
There you go. So, and I think both of them are applicable, because if you listen, like in Matthew, I believe it is, where Jesus is asked what you do to be saved, and he starts with keep the commandments, and the guy's like, all my life I've done that, and then he says, then sell all your belongings and give the money to poor. And this, along with blessed are the meek and all these other things, would make it appear that Christianity is very much pro-charity towards those people who are worse off. But as soon as you aren't in favor of that, as soon as you realize that, for example, Austin has a homeless problem, and the Atheists Helping the Homeless and Humanists at Work and other organizations are down there doing what they can to help out, and there are also theistic organizations that are down there doing what they can to help out, and yet there are other Christian organizations that want to quote Paul from 2 Thessalonians, where he says, if a man will not work, he shall not eat. And so you can pick whichever one of those verses seems best suited to what your personal view is, to say, and I have family members, oh, wait, I don't have to do that anymore. My mom is one of those people who is, when she looks at the homeless, they're just lazy, that's their fault, they will not work, therefore they shall not eat, Thessalonians, and considers that to be a loving expression. And I think it's garbage. But.
Yeah. And I do tend to lump Christians together, and in this case, I'm judging Christians by their impact on the world.
Well, you're studying a portion of the doctrine, and if by the way, if you're the type of Christian who does not believe the thing that Don's saying, then clearly he wasn't talking about you. But if you're running around calling yourself a Christian, if you stand that close to somebody when we're painting them, it's not our fault that you got paint on you.
One more point here. Christians seem to realize that government is the real power here, and they are trying to run the levers of government. And if prayer worked like Jesus said it does many, many times in the Bible, they would just pray for what they want. And here's an example. Matthew 18:19. Again, I say to you, if two of you agree on earth about anything they ask, it will be done for them and by my Father in heaven.
Yep.
For where there are 2 or 3 gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them.
Which means no two Christians have ever prayed for world peace or an end to poverty or hunger or a solution to the problem of immigrants or anything, because it would have already been fixed by God, according to that passage.
But everyone knows the world doesn't work this way, and the religious people especially know it doesn't work that way, so they want to get to the real power, which is government.
Yeah, instead of gathering 2 or 3 together in Jesus' name, they want to gather up an evangelical bloc and lobby to enforce legislation and then give credit to God.
Right. So, in conclusion, from these bills we learn that Christianity is evil, and they seem to know it. Their God doesn't work as advertised, and they clearly know it. Christians really just want power to do more evil, and they don't want any responsibility for the harm they cause.
Ooh, and that actually yes, I agree. That actually reminded me, because we've joked before about that. It also means that no two Christians have ever got together to like pray that the bat cruise doesn't happen, because we keep having awesome bat cruises in September. But it reminds me, sorry to keep coming back to this, the first birthday card that I got was problematic, where it said, "We are praying for God to stop you, whatever the cost." Well, there were definitely 2 Christians gathered together to pray that prayer, and it hasn't happened. As a matter of fact, the show's popularity has done nothing but climb over the years.
Yes, it's kind of taken off.
So, maybe, I don't know, maybe you didn't word it right. Maybe you're not right with God.
All right, let's take calls.
Welcome to a new saltier Matt.